Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into one of history's most infamous acts of betrayal. A story so dramatic it's been told and retold for over 2,000 years. We're talking about the assassination of Julius Caesar and the man at the heart of the conspiracy, his trusted friend, Marcus Junius Brutus. How did a man celebrated for his honor and virtue come to plunge a dagger into his mentor? Was it a noble act to save the Roman Republic? Or was it a cold-blooded murder born of jealousy and ambition? Let's unravel the complicated story of Brutus and Caesar. To understand Brutus, we first need to understand the world he lived in. The Roman Republic was in crisis. For centuries, it had been a system of elected officials and a powerful senate, but by the 1st century BC, it was tearing itself apart. Powerful generals with loyal armies were carving up the known world, and the old rules no longer seemed to apply. Into this chaos stepped Gaius Julius Caesar. He was a brilliant general, a charismatic politician, and a man with boundless ambition. He conquered Gaul, modern-day France, which made him fabulously wealthy and gave him a veteran army that was fiercely loyal to him, and him alone. When the Senate, fearing his power, ordered him to disband his army, Caesar did the unthinkable. He crossed the Rubicon River, the legal boundary of his authority, and marched on Rome, plunging the Republic into a bloody civil war. He defeated his rival, Pompey the Great, and by 45 BC, Caesar was the undisputed master of Rome. He was made dictator for a term, then for 10 years, and finally, dictator for life. The old Republic was, in all but name, dead. And this is where our main character, Brutus, enters the stage. Marcus Junius Brutus was a respected senator from one of Rome's most distinguished families. In fact, his ancestor, Lucius Junius Brutus, was the legendary figure who had driven out Rome's last king and founded the Republic some 500 years earlier. So, for Brutus, the idea of Republican liberty wasn't just a political ideal. It was his family's legacy. It was in his blood. During the Civil War, Brutus had actually sided with Pompey against Caesar. But after Pompey's defeat, Caesar did something remarkable. Instead of punishing Brutus, he pardoned him completely. Not only that, he welcomed him into his inner circle, gave him high-ranking positions, and treated him like a son. Some ancient sources even whispered that Caesar might have been Brutus's biological father, as Caesar had had an affair with Brutus's mother. While this is unlikely, it shows the depth of the personal connection between them. Caesar saw Brutus as the future of Rome, so why would Brutus turn on the man who had shown him such favor? The answer lies in that family legacy. As Caesar's power grew more absolute, many senators became deeply alarmed. They saw him being treated like a god, wearing his triumphal robes everywhere, and even having a golden chair in the Senate. They whispered that he wanted to be king, the one title Romans despised above all others. For them, Caesar's ambition was a direct threat to the very soul of Rome. They felt he was destroying the republic their ancestors had built. A group of these concerned senators, led by the bitter and resentful Gaius Cassius Longinus, began to plot. But Cassius knew that for their conspiracy to have any legitimacy, they needed Brutus. Brutus was a symbol of republican virtue. His name alone would transform a backroom conspiracy into a noble act of tyrannicide, the killing of a tyrant to save the state. Cassius began to work on Brutus, preying on his sense of duty and his famous family history. Mysterious messages started appearing on the statue of Brutus's ancestor, saying things like, "Oh, Brutus, if only you were alive today, or you are not a true Brutus." The pressure was immense. Brutus was torn. On one hand, he had a deep, personal loyalty to Caesar, the man who had forgiven and elevated him. On the other, he had a profound, ideological loyalty to the Republic. He truly believed that one man, no matter how great, should not hold absolute power. In his mind, he had to choose between his friend and his country. After weeks of agonizing, Brutus made his fateful decision. He chose the Republic. He joined the conspiracy and quickly became its leader. The plot was set for the Ides of March, March 5th, 10th, 44 BC. The conspirators decided to strike during a Senate meeting at the Theater of Pompey, a public place, to show this wasn't a secret murder but a public execution of a tyrant. On that morning, Caesar was reportedly warned by his wife, who had had a terrible nightmare. and by a soothsayer who had told him to beware the Ides of March. But Caesar, brushing off the warnings, went to the Senate. The conspirators surrounded him under the pretense of presenting a petition. Then they struck. One senator pulled Caesar's toga down, the signal to attack. The others drew daggers they had hidden in their robes and began to stab him. Caesar fought back, but he was outnumbered. Then, amidst the chaos, he saw a familiar face in the crowd of his attackers. Brutus. According to the historian Suetonius, Caesar's last words, uttered in Greek as he looked at Brutus, were kai su tenon, which means, "You, too, my child." The emotional weight of that final question is staggering. The betrayal from the man he loved like a son was the final, devastating blow. Caesar stopped resisting, pulled his toga over his head, and fell at the base of a statue of his old rival, Pompey, bleeding from 23 stab wounds. In the immediate aftermath, Brutus and the conspirators ran into the streets, holding their bloody daggers aloft and shouting, "Liberty! Freedom! Tyranny is dead." They expected the people of Rome to hail them as heroes, as liberators, but they were met with stunned silence, then fear and confusion. The public didn't see liberators. They saw a gang of wealthy senators who had murdered a popular leader. Caesar had been beloved by the common people for his land reforms and his generosity. The conspirators had badly misjudged the public mood. At Caesar's public funeral, his loyal lieutenant, Mark Antony, delivered a masterful speech. He didn't directly attack Brutus, who he sarcastically called an honorable man, but by reading Caesar's will, which left money and land to every Roman citizen, he turned the grieving crowd into an angry mob. The people rioted, driving Brutus and Cassius out of Rome. The assassination, meant to save the Republic, did the exact opposite. It plunged Rome into another, even more brutal civil war. On one side were Brutus and Cassius, the liberators, and on the other were Mark Antony and Caesar's adopted son and heir, the young Octavian. 2 years later, their armies met at the Battle of Philippi in Greece. Brutus's forces were defeated. Seeing that all was lost, Brutus asked one of his own men to hold a sword while he ran upon it, taking his own life. His dream of a restored republic died with him. Mark Antony, finding his body, is said to have declared Brutus the noblest Roman of them all. Because while the other conspirators acted out of envy only, Brutus acted from an honest, if misguided, belief that he was doing what was right for Rome. So, we come back to our original question. Was Brutus a hero or a villain? A patriot or a traitor? The truth is, he was both. He was a man of principle who committed a terrible act for what he believed was a noble cause. His story is a timeless tragedy about the clash between personal loyalty and political ideals, about how the road to hell can be paved with the best of intentions. The assassination of Caesar didn't save the Republic. It accelerated its final collapse and paved the way for the rise of Rome's first emperor, Octavian, who would become Augustus. Brutus's act of betrayal, meant to prevent one man from ruling Rome, ultimately ensured that Rome would be ruled by emperors for the next 500 years. What do you think? Was Brutus justified in what he did? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. It's one of history's great debates, and there's no easy answer. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this deep dive into history, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next video. See you next time.